How I started learning English, my steps to success. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Logan, and today I want to share my personal story of learning English. When I first started, I felt nervous and unsure because learning a new language can feel hard. But I realized that with the right approach, it doesn't have to be scary. In fact, it can be fun and even exciting. In this video, I'll tell you about the simple steps that helped me on my journey. Each small step made English feel easier and more natural. So, if you're just starting or if you're looking for new ideas, these tips might help you too. Let's dive in and make English learning enjoyable. 1. Start with simple words. When you start learning English, you don't need to learn many words at once. Start small and focus on simple words that you use every day. For example, hello for greetings, thank you to show kindness, friend to talk about people you care about. I remember when I started learning English, I felt nervous. I thought I needed to know many words, but I was wrong. Instead, I learned a few words each day. For example, one day I learned water, book, happy, apple, and school. Then, I used these words to make sentences like, I drink water. This is my book. I feel happy. I eat an apple. I go to school. It felt good to use these simple words to talk about my life. Here's how you can practice. 1. Choose 5 new words each day. 2. Write them down in a notebook. Practice saying them out loud. 4. Make easy sentences with them. For example, if you learn the words pen, dog, blue, food, and teacher, you can say, this is my pen. I see a dog. The sky is blue. I like food. She is my teacher. Learning small words every day will make you feel confident. Don't rush. It's okay to take your time. Remember, small steps are important. Each word you learn brings you closer to speaking English fluently. You don't need to know many words at first. Just focus on a few easy ones, practice them, and use them in your daily life. So, start with simple words, practice often, and enjoy learning English. Small steps can make a big difference. 2. Watch shows with subtitles. Watching English shows was one of the best things I did to improve my English. When I started, I chose simple, short shows that were easy to understand. This helped me avoid feeling overwhelmed, and it kept things fun and interesting. I turned on the English subtitles and focused on both listening and reading at the same time. Every time someone spoke, I could see the words written on the screen. This really helped me understand the pronunciation and spelling of words. For example, if a character said, "How are you?" I could see it on the screen, hear it, and practice saying it myself. Seeing the words and hearing them at the same time allowed me to connect what I was hearing to how the words looked. At first I only understood a few words, but I kept watching and didn't worry about catching every single thing. My goal was to understand the main ideas. The more I watched, the more I started understanding. Over time, I noticed I was catching more words and even some expressions. Watching these shows felt like spending time with English-speaking friends, and it made the language feel real and alive to me. Shows are also great because they give us a glimpse into the culture and how people actually speak. In English class, we often learn formal language, but in TV shows, we can hear the casual, everyday conversations that people have. We get to hear different tones, expressions, and accents, which helps us understand that English isn't always spoken in one fixed way. As I watched, I would try to repeat phrases out loud. Repeating after the characters was a fun way to practice pronunciation. I noticed how they spoke with expressions, pauses, and emphasis on certain words. I began to mimic their tone and tried to sound like them. This was actually one of the most effective ways for me to improve my speaking skills. It felt like a game, and the more I practiced, the more confident I became. Little by little, my pronunciation started to improve, and I felt more comfortable speaking English out loud. One thing I really liked about watching shows was that I could go at my own pace. If there was a phrase or word I didn't understand, I could pause and look it up. Sometimes I would even replay certain parts just to hear them again. By taking my time, I could make sure I was learning each part fully. I wasn't in a rush, and that allowed me to enjoy the process without any pressure. Another thing I learned was to choose shows that matched my interests. When we watch something we genuinely enjoy, we're more motivated to pay attention and keep going. I love comedies, so I started with funny shows because they kept me entertained. Laughter makes learning enjoyable, and it helped me relax. I wasn't just studying English. I was enjoying a good story at the same time. As I got better, I challenged myself with longer shows and even movies. I kept the subtitles on in English, but I was understanding more and more without needing to read every word. This felt like real progress. Eventually, I tried watching without subtitles, and I was surprised at how much I could follow. It showed me that all those hours of watching and listening had truly paid off. For anyone trying to learn English, I highly recommend starting with short, simple shows and using English subtitles. It's okay if you don't understand everything at first. Focus on the main idea and enjoy the story. The goal is to expose yourself to the language naturally and pick up words and phrases along the way. By doing this regularly, you'll notice gradual improvement, and you'll gain confidence in understanding spoken English. Remember, learning a language is a journey, and every small step counts. Watching shows with subtitles is one of those small, enjoyable steps that can make a big difference over time. So, find a show you like, turn on the English subtitles, and let yourself get immersed in the language. Keep watching, keep listening, and keep practicing. Every episode brings you one step closer to fluency. 3. Speak out loud when you're alone. When I first started learning English, I was shy and nervous about speaking. I worried about making mistakes and didn't want others to hear me mess up. But then I discovered a simple trick that helped me practice speaking without any pressure. Talking to myself. It might sound a bit funny, but speaking to yourself in English can actually be a powerful tool. When you're alone, there's no one to judge you, so you can practice freely. I started by describing what I was doing or thinking in English. For example, if I was cooking, I'd say things like, "I am chopping vegetables," or "I need to boil water now." At first, it felt a bit strange, but as I kept doing it, I noticed I was becoming more comfortable with forming sentences in English. One of the biggest benefits of talking to yourself is that it helps you think in English. Instead of translating from your native language, you start practicing the words and phrases directly. This shift in thinking is really helpful because it makes English feel more natural. I started with very simple sentences describing everyday actions like, I am getting dressed or I am washing the dishes. These were things I did every day, so I didn't need to look up words. I could just focus on speaking without any stress. Over time, I began expanding my sentences. I would talk about my plans for the day, what I wanted to achieve, or even how I was feeling. For example, I'd say, today I want to study English for an hour, or I feel happy because it's sunny outside. Little by little, I was building my vocabulary and confidence. I wasn't just practicing English. I was using it to express myself. Another thing I enjoyed doing was narrating my actions in a kind of storytelling way. For instance, I'd say, now I am going to make a cup of tea. First, I need to boil the water. Then I'll put the tea bag in the cup and wait for it to brew. This exercise helped me become more comfortable using sequence words like first, then, and after that. It also helped me practice describing actions in a clear and simple way. Talking to yourself is also a great way to practice pronunciation. When you're alone, you don't have to worry about anyone else hearing you, so you can focus entirely on how you're saying each word. I found it helpful to repeat certain words or phrases that I found difficult. For example, if I struggled with a word like comfortable, I'd say it several times until I felt more confident. This repetition helped me get used to the sounds of English, and I felt my pronunciation getting better each day. As I grew more comfortable, I started using a mirror. Speaking to myself in front of a mirror helped me observe my facial expressions and body language. It also allowed me to practice eye contact and see how I looked while speaking. At first, it was a bit awkward, but it actually became fun. I'd pretend I was having a conversation with someone else, and this made the practice feel more real. It's a great way to build self-confidence and get used to seeing yourself speak English. To make this practice more effective, I also set small goals for myself. For example, I'd challenge myself to talk in English for 5 minutes without stopping. I'd talk about anything that came to mind, whether it was about my plans for the day, what I was thinking, or even what I saw around me. Setting these small goals helped me stay consistent, and over time, I was able to increase the time to 10 minutes or even longer. As I kept practicing, I noticed I was getting more fluent. I could form sentences more quickly and didn't have to think as much. The words started coming naturally and my confidence grew. When I finally started speaking with other people, I felt more prepared. I wasn't as nervous, and I didn't have to pause as much to think about what I wanted to say. Talking to yourself in English might feel a bit unusual at first, but it's a fantastic way to build confidence and improve your speaking skills. You don't need a partner or a classroom, just a few minutes a day to speak out loud. You'll be surprised at how much this simple practice can help you progress. If you're just starting out, here are a few tips. 1. Start simple. Begin with describing simple actions. Talk about what you're doing, like, I am brushing my teeth, or I am making breakfast. These everyday sentences are easy to practice and will help you get used to speaking. 2. Describe your thoughts and feelings. Once you're comfortable, start talking about how you feel or what you're thinking. For example, I am excited to learn more English today, or I feel a bit tired, but I will still practice. This helps you expand your vocabulary and use English in different ways. 3. Use a mirror. Try speaking in front of a mirror. This can help you practice body language and facial expressions, and it makes the practice feel more like a real conversation. Set a timer. Challenge yourself to speak in English for a certain amount of time each day. Start with a few minutes and gradually increase as you get more comfortable. 5. Repeat words and phrases. If there's a word or phrase you find difficult, say it several times until it feels natural. Repetition can improve your pronunciation and make you more confident. 6. Pretend you're talking to a friend. Imagine you're explaining something to a friend in English. This can make the practice feel more engaging and help you get used to speaking in a conversational style. Remember, the goal isn't perfection, but to make English a comfortable part of your day-to-day life. Talking to yourself in English is a small but powerful step toward becoming fluent. Embrace this practice, and don't worry if it feels funny at first. The more you do it, the more natural it will feel. And who knows? One day you might surprise yourself with how easily you can express yourself in English. Keep practicing and enjoy the journey. Use English in daily life. When I was learning English, I realized that to get comfortable with the language, I needed to use it as much as possible, even if it was just a little each day. That's when I decided to start incorporating English into my daily life in simple ways. At first, it felt a bit challenging, but I soon noticed that these small, consistent actions made a huge difference in helping English feel natural. One of the easiest ways I found to use English daily was by greeting people. Instead of saying hi or hello in my native language, I'd greet friends, family members, or even co-workers with hello or good morning in English. At first, it was just a small change, but it helped me get used to English sounds and simple expressions. Over time, I started to add a bit more, like asking, "How are you?" or "How's your day going?" These small phrases became a natural part of my routine, and I felt more comfortable saying them each day. I also started to label things around me in English. For example, I put small sticky notes on items in my room, like door, window, bed, and desk. This simple trick helped me associate English words with objects I used every day. It was a fun way to remember vocabulary, and I'd often repeat the words out loud as I looked at them. After a while, I didn't need the sticky notes anymore because the English words had become part of my memory. Another thing that helped was switching small parts of my daily life into English. For example, when I was checking my phone, I'd change the settings to English. This way, I'd see English words like messages, settings, and notifications every day. Even though it was a small change, it made English feel more like a regular part of my life. I'd also try to read short English messages or notifications, and it gave me the chance to practice reading in a relaxed way. When I was alone, I'd practice thinking in English. This was a simple way to use English in my mind without speaking out loud. For instance, if I was planning my day, I'd try to think in English, saying things like, "Today I will go to the store," or "I need to finish my homework." It was a bit tricky at first, but thinking in English helped me get used to the language structure. Over time, it became easier, and it felt like English was becoming more natural. Whenever I could, I'd also try to describe my surroundings in English. For example, if I was walking outside, I'd look around and say things like, "The sky is blue," "The sun is shining," or "There are many trees in the park." This practice helped me learn new words for colors, weather, and nature. Plus, it was a great way to turn something simple, like a walk, into an opportunity to practice English. When I felt ready, I started using English in small interactions with strangers. For example, when I went to a cafe, I'd order my coffee in English. I'd say, "Can I have a coffee, please?" or "Thank you." These small interactions helped me get comfortable speaking English in real-life situations. They were quick and didn't require much conversation, so I didn't feel pressured. Each time I did this, my confidence grew, and I felt more comfortable using English with other people. Another fun way I used English in daily life was by talking to myself as if I was giving instructions. For instance, while cooking, I'd say things like, "Now I'm chopping the onions," or "Next, I will add salt." Describing my actions in English helped me build vocabulary related to cooking and daily tasks. It was like a little English lesson every time I prepared food. I also tried to write a few sentences in English each day, especially in my journal. Writing things like, "Today I am happy," or "I went to the park," helped me practice simple sentence structures. It didn't take much time, but it helped reinforce what I was learning. Sometimes I'd write down new words I heard or practiced during the day. It became a habit, and over time, I noticed that my writing in English was improving. Another helpful practice was setting small goals. For example, I'd decide to use at least 5 English phrases throughout the day. It could be as simple as "Thank you," "Excuse me," or "I'm sorry." Meeting this goal each day made me feel accomplished and kept me motivated. It was a reminder that learning a language happens gradually, and every small effort counts. One of the biggest lessons I learned from using English daily was that consistency is key. Even if I didn't spend hours studying, just using a few phrases each day made a difference. It's easy to think you need a big block of time to practice, but in reality, small efforts add up over time. These daily interactions and habits made English a regular part of my life and helped me feel more connected to the language. Finally, I made sure to keep a positive mindset. Whenever I felt unsure or made a mistake, I'd remind myself that learning takes time and practice. I'd laugh off my mistakes and try again. I learned that feeling comfortable with English doesn't happen overnight, but every time I used it, I was taking another step forward. This positive approach kept me motivated, even on days when it felt challenging. 5. Write a journal in English. When I started learning English, I discovered that writing was one of the best ways to reinforce what I'd learned, so I decided to keep a journal in English. At first, it was a bit challenging. I didn't always know the right words, and I worried about making mistakes. But soon, I realized that the journal wasn't about being perfect. It was about practice, progress, and using English every day in a real, meaningful way. Each day, I'd take a few minutes to write 1 or 2 sentences about my day. It didn't have to be anything complicated. I'd write simple things like, "Today I went to the park," or "I had lunch with my friend." These short sentences helped me practice basic vocabulary and sentence structure, and as I got more comfortable, I started to write a bit more. I'd add details like what I saw or how I felt. For example, "Today I went to the park. The weather was sunny, and I felt very happy." Little by little, I found that my sentences were getting longer, and I was becoming more comfortable with English. Keeping a journal also helped me remember new words. Whenever I learned a new word during the day, I'd try to include it in my journal. For instance, if I learned the word interesting, I'd write, "Today, I read an interesting book," or "I had an interesting conversation." This helped me not only remember the new word, but also practice using it in context. It was a small but powerful way to grow my vocabulary and make sure that the words I learned were words I'd actually use. Writing every day also helped me notice patterns in English. I began to understand how sentences were put together, and I saw how different words connected. At first, I made a lot of mistakes, but that was okay. Mistakes were just part of the learning process. Sometimes, I'd write a sentence and realize later that it wasn't correct. For example, I might write, "Today I go to the store," when I meant, "Today I went to the store." When I noticed these errors, I'd correct them, and over time I made fewer mistakes. The journal became like a small classroom where I could learn from my own experiences. As I kept writing, I found that the journal was also a great way to track my progress. Every few weeks, I'd look back at what I wrote, and I could see how much I had improved. In the beginning, my sentences were very short and simple, but as I practiced, they became longer and more detailed. This progress made me feel proud and motivated to keep learning. It showed me that even though language learning can be slow, every small effort counts. Seeing my growth on paper reminded me that I was getting better, one sentence at a time. Another thing I enjoyed was writing about different topics each day. Some days I'd write about what I did, but other days I'd write about my feelings or my plans for the future. For example, I'd write, "I feel excited about learning English," or "Tomorrow, I want to try speaking English with my friend." This variety made writing fun, and it allowed me to practice different types of sentences. Sometimes I'd even write down questions to ask myself, like, "What is my goal in learning English?" Answering these questions helped me practice expressing my thoughts and opinions, which was a valuable skill. To make journaling easier, I created a few simple prompts for myself. Prompts are like questions or ideas to help you start writing. Here are a few I used. What did I do today? How do I feel right now? What new word did I learn today? What do I want to do tomorrow? What was the best part of my day? Having these prompts helped me start writing even on days when I didn't know what to say. They gave me a focus, and over time, I found it easier to write without needing a prompt. This made journaling feel more natural, and it helped me build confidence in expressing my thoughts in English. The more I wrote, the easier it became to think in English. At first, I'd have to translate my thoughts from my native language to English, but after some time, I started to think directly in English. For example, when I was writing, I'd think, "Today I walked to the store," without translating. This was a big step for me, and it made English feel more comfortable and familiar. One of the best parts about writing in a journal is that it's private. I didn't have to worry about anyone else reading it, so I felt free to make mistakes and learn from them. This made me feel more relaxed and willing to try new things. If I wasn't sure about a word, I'd just try it, knowing that it was okay to make mistakes. Over time, I learned to trust myself and feel more comfortable with English. Keeping a journal also helped me with speaking. When I wrote about my day, I practiced the same words and phrases I might use in conversation. So, when I spoke to someone in English, I found it easier to remember words and form sentences. It was like preparing for conversations by writing first, and it made speaking feel less intimidating. If you're learning English, I encourage you to try writing in a journal. It doesn't have to be long or complicated. Just a few sentences each day can make a big difference. Write about whatever comes to mind, whether it's what you did, how you feel, or what you want to achieve. Don't worry about making mistakes. Just focus on expressing yourself. Over time, you'll see improvement, and you'll feel more confident using English. 6. Listen to music and sing along. One of the most enjoyable ways I found to learn English was through music. Music isn't just for fun. It can be a powerful tool for learning. Listening to English songs and singing along helped me pick up new words, understand pronunciation, and get a feel for how sentences flow naturally. Plus, it made the learning process much more enjoyable and exciting. I started by choosing songs that I liked and that had simple, clear lyrics. Pop songs or slow ballads often work best for beginners, as the lyrics are easy to follow, and the singers usually pronounce words clearly. I'd listen to the song a few times to get familiar with the melody and rhythm, and then I'd look up the lyrics online. Having the lyrics in front of me allowed me to follow along more closely, helping me understand the words better and see how they fit together. Once I was comfortable with the lyrics, I'd try to sing along. At first, it was a bit challenging to keep up, but as I practiced, it became easier. Singing along forced me to pronounce the words as they were in the song, which was a great way to practice speaking and improve my pronunciation. It was like having a pronunciation lesson that was fun and didn't feel like studying at all. I learned how certain words should sound and got better at pronouncing them myself. Songs often have phrases and expressions that are commonly used in everyday conversation, so I also picked up useful vocabulary. For example, phrases like, hold on, take it easy, or let's go come up often in songs, and they're also used a lot in daily life. Hearing these phrases in music helped me remember them, and singing them out loud made it easier to use them naturally. When I heard the same phrases in conversations or TV shows, I recognized them right away because I had learned them through songs. Music also helped me get used to the rhythm and flow of English. Every language has its own rhythm, and singing English songs allowed me to feel this rhythm. I could tell where the emphasis was on certain words and syllables, which helped me understand the natural flow of the language. This made speaking English feel more comfortable over time. Instead of sounding robotic or stiff, I started to sound more natural and confident. Another thing I loved about using music to learn English was that I could take it anywhere. Whether I was on the bus, going for a walk, or relaxing at home, I could listen to my favorite songs and practice singing. It made learning feel easy and flexible, and I could fit it into my daily routine without feeling pressured. If you're learning English, I recommend picking a song that you really enjoy, one that makes you feel happy or excited. When you like the music, it's easier to keep practicing because it feels less like studying and more like having fun. Try to listen to the song a few times, look up the lyrics, and then sing along. Don't worry if you can't keep up at first. Just go at your own pace. The important thing is to enjoy the process and let the words and phrases become familiar to you. Over time, I noticed that my English improved, and I became more confident in speaking and understanding the language. Music was my secret tool. It taught me new words, improved my pronunciation, and made learning feel enjoyable. So, grab your headphones, pick a song, and start singing along. You'll be surprised at how much you can learn and how fun it can be. 7. Practice with a friend. Learning English became much easier and more enjoyable when I had a friend to practice with. If you have someone to share the experience with, it can make all the difference. I had a friend who was also learning English, and we made a habit of practicing together. Having a partner to learn with made the process less lonely and much more fun. At first, we didn't have to practice for hours. We started with just a few minutes of speaking English every day. We would talk about simple things like our plans for the day, how we were feeling, or what we had done recently. Even though we weren't perfect, we encouraged each other and felt proud of our progress. The best part was that we didn't feel afraid to make mistakes, because we were both learning together. One of the most helpful things about practicing with a friend is that it builds your confidence. It's easier to speak out loud when you know someone else is also trying to improve their skills. When I spoke English with my friend, I didn't worry too much about saying things wrong because I knew they would understand. And when I didn't understand something, my friend was there to help me out. Together, we made the learning process feel less stressful and more supportive. Practicing with a friend also made learning more interactive. Sometimes we would have mini conversations in English where we would ask each other questions, describe things, or talk about our favorite hobbies. This helped me learn how to respond quickly in conversations, which is an important skill in real-life situations. We also did fun activities like playing word games, watching short videos in English, or reading simple articles together. These activities kept us motivated and allowed us to learn new words in a natural, enjoyable way. Another great thing about learning with a friend is that you can help each other out. If one of us didn't know how to say something, we would look it up together. Sometimes we would correct each other's mistakes, but we always did it in a kind and encouraging way. This made me feel like I had someone who truly cared about my progress, and it pushed me to keep improving. It also helped me realize that making mistakes is a normal part of learning, and that we should celebrate our progress instead of focusing on our mistakes. Having a practice buddy also made me more consistent. When you have a friend to practice with, it's easier to stay on track because you can hold each other accountable. We set small goals, like speaking English for 10 minutes every day, and we kept each other motivated. Knowing that my friend was counting on me to practice kept me more disciplined and encouraged me to keep going. If you don't have a friend who's learning English, don't worry. You can still find someone to practice with. You can look for a language partner online, join a language exchange group, or ask a family member to help you practice. Even if your partner is at a different level, it can still be helpful. You can learn from each other, and even practicing with a beginner can help reinforce your own skills. So, if you want to make learning English more fun and effective, find a friend to practice with. Whether it's a few minutes each day or a longer session once a week, practicing with someone else will make a big difference. Together, you'll feel more confident, motivated, and excited about learning. And remember, learning a new language is always easier when you have someone to share the journey with. 8. Be patient and practice. Every day. Learning English, like any new skill, takes time and effort. When I first started, I wanted to become fluent as quickly as possible. I thought I could learn everything in a few months, but I soon realized that language learning is a journey that requires patience. The key to success is consistent practice, even if it's just a little each day. In the beginning, I felt frustrated at times because I wasn't improving as fast as I had hoped. I made mistakes, forgot vocabulary, and struggled with grammar. But over time, I learned that mistakes are part of the process. They are not something to be afraid of, but opportunities to learn. As I kept practicing, even when I felt like I wasn't making much progress, I began to notice small improvements. It was these small changes that encouraged me to keep going. One important thing I learned was that practice doesn't have to be long or overwhelming. In fact, it's better to practice for short periods regularly than to try to study for hours at once. I made it a habit to spend 10 to 15 minutes every day practicing English, whether that was listening to a podcast, reading a short article, or speaking with a friend. Even these small daily practices added up over time and helped me become more comfortable with the language. I also realized that the key to steady improvement is consistency. It's easy to get busy or feel tired and skip a day of practice, but if you make it a daily habit, it becomes easier to stay on track. I set small, achievable goals for myself. For example, I would learn 5 new words each day or write a few sentences in my journal. These small steps may seem simple, but they helped me build a solid foundation in English. Patience is important, but so is persistence. There will be days when you feel like you're not making any progress. Maybe you forget a word you learned the day before, or you have trouble understanding something. That's normal. The key is to keep going, even when it feels hard. Every time you practice, you are improving. It might not always feel like it, but slowly and surely, your skills will grow. Over time, you'll see how far you've come. One thing that really helped me stay patient was focusing on the process, not just the result. It's easy to get frustrated when you think about how much more you need to learn, but instead of focusing on the big goal of becoming fluent, I focused on enjoying the little things. I celebrated the days when I was able to have a short conversation in English or understand a song without looking at the lyrics. Each small achievement was a step forward, and those small victories kept me motivated. Another important thing I learned was that it's okay to take breaks when needed. Sometimes I would feel burnt out from studying, and I would take a day off to relax. It's important to listen to yourself and not push too hard. Learning a language should be fun, not stressful. Taking breaks helped me come back to my practice feeling refreshed and more motivated. So if you're learning English and feeling discouraged, remember that it takes time and you don't need to rush. The key is to practice every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. Be patient with yourself, enjoy the process, and trust that over time your English will improve. You don't have to be perfect right away. Just keep practicing bit by bit, and soon you'll look back and see how much you've learned. Keep going, and remember, progress comes with time and persistence. 9. Use English in real-life situations. One of the most important steps in my journey to learning English was using the language in real-life situations. It's easy to practice with textbooks or apps, but the real test of your skills comes when you try to use English outside of a classroom setting. I found that applying what I learned in everyday situations helped me build real confidence and made the language feel more natural. At first, I was nervous about speaking English with others, especially in public. I was worried about making mistakes or not being understood. But I soon realized that the more I practiced in real situations, the more comfortable and confident I became. So I started looking for opportunities to use English wherever I could. For example, when I went to a restaurant, I would order my food in English. Even if the waiter spoke my native language, I made an effort to use English. I would say, "Can I have a sandwich, please?" or "What's the soup of the day?" These small actions helped me get used to hearing myself speak in English, and it felt good to know I could communicate in a real-world situation. Another thing I did was greet tourists in English. Where I live, there are many visitors from different countries, and I saw this as a chance to practice. When I saw someone looking at a map or trying to ask for directions, I would approach them and say, "Hello, how can I help you?" Speaking to tourists allowed me to use simple phrases in real conversations, which boosted my confidence and helped me feel more comfortable with my speaking skills. In addition to these simple daily actions, I also made it a habit to use English when I went shopping, at the bank, or when interacting with people online. For example, when I visited a store, I would ask about the products in English, like, "How much is this?" or "Do you have this in a different size?" Even when I wasn't sure of the answer, I still tried. Over time, I became less shy about using English in these everyday situations, and I realized that making mistakes was okay. It was part of the learning process. I also tried using English during my travels. Whenever I went to another country, I would practice using the language in places like airports, hotels, and shops. This gave me the chance to immerse myself in real-life situations where English was spoken, and it pushed me to use the language without relying on my native language. I learned that people are often very patient when you're trying to speak their language, and they appreciate the effort. It made me more confident because I could see how much English I already knew, even if I hadn't mastered everything. Another important lesson I learned from using English in real-life situations was that I didn't need to worry about being perfect. It wasn't about speaking flawlessly, it was about communicating and connecting with people. Even if I made mistakes, the person I was speaking to would understand my meaning. And every time I practiced in these situations, I improved my ability to understand and speak English more naturally. The key takeaway from my experience is that learning a language isn't just about memorizing vocabulary and grammar rules. It's about using the language in real contexts. This is where you truly test your skills and see how much you've learned. The more you put English into practice, the more confident and comfortable you'll become. So, don't be afraid to use English in your daily life, whether it's ordering food, greeting a stranger, or even chatting with someone online. These real-world experiences will not only help you improve your English, but will also remind you of how far you've come in your learning journey. 10. Stay positive. Learning a new language, especially English, can be a long journey, and sometimes it feels overwhelming. There are moments when you make mistakes or struggle to remember a word or phrase, but those moments are part of the process. What really helped me throughout my learning experience was staying positive. A positive attitude can make a huge difference, not just in how fast you learn, but in how much you enjoy the process. There were times when I felt frustrated. I'd forget a word I had just learned, or I'd say something wrong in a conversation. In those moments, it was easy to feel discouraged, But I remembered why I wanted to learn English in the first place. I wanted to open up new opportunities for myself, connect with people from all over the world, and gain confidence in my ability to communicate. That motivation helped me push through the tough times. One of the best ways to stay positive is to focus on your progress, no matter how small it may seem. Every day that you practice, even for a few minutes, you're improving. It's easy to get caught up in thinking you should be fluent immediately, but language learning takes time. Celebrate your small victories, like understanding a new word or being able to hold a short conversation in English. These are all signs that you're moving forward. Every word you learn, every sentence you understand, is a step closer to your goal. Another key to staying positive is to remember that mistakes are part of learning. Don't be afraid to make them. I made many mistakes along the way, and at first, I would feel embarrassed or discouraged. But over time, I realized that mistakes were my best teachers. When I made a mistake, I didn't see it as a failure. I saw it as an opportunity to improve. For example, when I said the wrong word in a sentence, I would laugh it off and try again. By doing this, I not only improved my language skills, but I also built confidence. Laughing at your mistakes helps take the pressure off and makes learning more fun. It's important to be kind to yourself when you're learning something new. Language learning can be tough, and there will be days when you feel like you're not making progress. On those days, remind yourself that it's okay to take breaks and that progress isn't always linear. Some days will feel like you're moving forward, and other days will feel like a step back. But overall, with consistent effort, you'll see improvement. A positive mindset also helped me stay motivated during the times when learning English felt like a lot of work. It's easy to get discouraged when you feel like you're not making quick progress, but I kept telling myself that every little bit I learned was valuable. Even on days when I didn't feel like studying, I would remind myself that learning English was something I enjoyed and that it would open up new opportunities in the future. Another helpful tip to stay positive is to surround yourself with supportive people. Find friends or classmates who are also learning English, and encourage each other. Sharing your challenges and successes with others helps you stay motivated and reminds you that you're not alone. I had friends who were also learning English, and we would talk about our progress, laugh at our mistakes, and support each other. It made the journey much more enjoyable. One thing I also did was reward myself when I reached certain milestones. For example, when I understood a full conversation in English or when I learned a difficult grammar rule, I would take a moment to celebrate my success. Whether it was treating myself to a small reward or just taking a moment to appreciate how far I had come, these little celebrations kept me motivated. Staying positive doesn't mean that you won't face challenges or frustration. It means that when you do face these moments, you don't let them stop you. Instead, you see them as part of the journey and continue moving forward. I found that when I maintained a positive attitude, I was more willing to practice, make mistakes, and enjoy the process. Finally, it's important to remember that learning English is a journey, not a destination. There's always something new to learn, and that's what makes it exciting. Stay curious, stay positive, and keep practicing. Whether it's speaking with a friend, reading a book in English, or watching a TV show, every step you take brings you closer to your goals. Thank you for joining me today. I hope these tips inspire you on your English journey. Remember, learning English doesn't have to be difficult. Start with small steps, keep a positive attitude, and you'll improve every day. Keep practicing, stay patient, and I'm sure you'll achieve your English goals. See you next time.